My name is Renata Albright. I'm 36, and the same afternoon I found out I was pregnant, my boss called me into his office and let me go. He didn't know about the pregnancy yet. I hadn't told anyone, not even my husband. He just knew the company was restructuring, and apparently 4 years of being his top account director meant I was the easiest restructure to sign. I sat across from him, the test results still folded in my bag from the pharmacy bathroom 20 minutes earlier, and listened to him explain that this wasn't personal. He said it twice, actually, like repeating it would make it true. I said, of course. I shook his hand. I cleared my desk by 5 p.m., put my plants in a cardboard box, and drove home in complete silence because I didn't trust my own voice yet. What he didn't know was that I'd spent the last year quietly building something of my own on the side. Something his biggest client had already seen and liked more than they liked him. 6 months later, I wasn't job hunting anymore. I was reading his company's name on a term sheet with my signature at the bottom. But to understand how that happened, you have to go back further than that office, further than that pregnancy test, all the way back to a 22-year-old version of me who didn't know yet what she was capable of. I'd worked at Halloway Media for 4 years, the last 2 as account director on their biggest client, a regional retail chain called Lindgren Outdoor that brought in nearly 1/3 of the agency's total revenue. That one account was, in a lot of ways, the thing keeping the lights on. My boss, Greg Halloway, built the agency from nothing in his 30s, and he never once let anyone forget it. He told the story at every client dinner, every new hire orientation, every holiday party, the scrappy beginning, the empty office, the first big client. It was a good story. I just got tired of hearing it delivered like a credential instead of a memory. Greg was the kind of boss who took credit for your wins in client meetings and put distance from your name the moment something went wrong. I watched him do it to 3 different account managers before me. I learned to work around him instead of through him. I built direct relationships with our clients. I showed up early, stayed late, learned their businesses better than some of their own employees did. I delivered results that made the agency look good. Even on the days Greg made the room uncomfortable with a comment he thought was charming and everyone else recognized as something else entirely. About a year before I was let go, I'd started consulting quietly on the side. Nothing that competed with Halloway. Just smaller brands that didn't fit our roster, things too small for the agency to bother with. It wasn't a plan to leave. It genuinely just grew on its own, late nights and weekends, because I liked building something from scratch and watching it take its first breath. I never told Greg. I didn't owe him a roadmap of my life outside his office, and some part of me, even then, sensed that I might need somewhere else to land someday. The restructuring conversation lasted 4 minutes. I know because I watched the clock on his wall the entire time, partly out of nerves and partly because some defensive part of my brain wanted to remember exactly how long it took for 4 years to be erased. He used the word redundant. He used the word direction. He never once asked how I was doing, which, looking back, might have been the only completely honest part of the entire meeting. I found out I was pregnant that same morning, before work, in a gas station bathroom because I couldn't wait until I got home. I'd had a feeling for a few days, and finally just stopped at the first place with a working bathroom on my way in. I sat there on the closed toilet lid for almost 10 minutes just looking at 2 pink lines, completely unprepared for what the rest of that day was about to do to me. I hadn't told a single person. Not my husband yet. Not my sister, nobody. I'd planned on telling David that night, over dinner, the way you picture it happening before life actually happens to you. So when Greg shook my hand and wished me luck, he had no idea what he was actually doing. He was letting go of someone who was about to need stability more than she'd ever needed it in her adult life, for a reason that had nothing to do with her work and everything to do with a P and L sheet he'd probably reviewed for 10 minutes that morning. I didn't tell him. I didn't owe him that either. I went home, sat on my bathroom floor for 20 minutes with my back against the tub, and then I got up, made a cup of tea I didn't drink, and opened my laptop. The side project I'd been building wasn't huge, but it had one thing Holloway Media never managed to build in 4 years. A direct, personal relationship with Lindgren Outdoor, the same retail chain that was Holloway's biggest account. Their VP of marketing, a woman named Carol, had reached out to me directly months earlier, not through the agency, through me. She'd liked working with me specifically, not Holloway Media as a brand. People like Greg never understand that distinction until the moment it costs them everything. A week after I was let go, Carol called to ask why she hadn't heard from me on the latest campaign rollout. I told her, as plainly as I could manage, that I'd left the agency. She was quiet for a moment on the other end of the line, long enough that I almost asked if she was still there, and then she asked one question. "Are you taking clients?" I said I could be. My voice barely shook when I said it, which felt like its own small victory. By month 3, Lindgren Outdoor was my client, not Holloway's. By month 4, 2 more of his accounts had quietly followed, once word got around that I was building something independent and stable. Holloway Media lost nearly half its revenue inside that single quarter, and Greg never once understood why, because he never thought to ask what actually made clients stay in the first place. It was never the agency's name on the door. It was the person who answered the phone at 9 p.m. when something went wrong. By month 6, I wasn't running a side project anymore. I had a small agency of my own, 3 clients that used to be his, 2 part-time hires I was slowly bringing on, and a 6-month pregnant belly I'd stopped trying to hide in client meetings, because honestly, I'd stopped caring what anyone thought about the timing of it. Greg called me himself. Not an assistant, not an email through a lawyer. Him, on my personal cell phone, a number he'd somehow still had saved from 4 years of working together. He didn't apologize. People like Greg rarely do. Not really, not in a way you could ever quote back to them later. He said the agency was exploring strategic options and asked, with what I can only describe as practiced casualness, if I'd be interested in discussing a partnership. I knew exactly what that meant before he finished the sentence. Holloway Media was drowning, and he needed a name on the door that clients still actually trusted. I told him I'd look at the books. I said it evenly, the way you'd respond to any other business inquiry, even though my hands were shaking slightly when I hung up the phone. I didn't do what came next out of revenge, even though I understand completely why it might look that way from the outside. I did it because it made business sense. Buying his client relationships, his office lease, and absorbing what was left of his small remaining team made my agency bigger, faster, than building everything again from scratch would have taken. The math simply made sense, the way good decisions usually do once you strip the emotion back out of them. The fact that my name went on the purchase agreement instead of his was just where the math happened to land. I had my daughter 2 weeks after the sale closed. In the same week, I was supposed to be finalizing the new office lease, which meant I spent part of my maternity leave on the phone with a property lawyer with a newborn asleep on my chest. Greg sent a card. A real paper card, not a text, which I appreciated more than I expected to, given everything. I didn't keep him on staff after the acquisition closed. That part wasn't a business decision. That part, I'll admit, I let myself enjoy. What I think about now, most days, holding my daughter in the same office that used to have his name stenciled on the glass door, isn't the 4-minute meeting where he let me go. It isn't even the call where he asked for help without quite asking for it. It's the version of me sitting on that gas station bathroom floor, 26 years old in spirit, even though I was 35 in actual years. Scared and completely alone with 2 pink lines and no idea what the rest of the day held. She had no idea she already had everything she needed inside her to build something that would outlast the man who once decided she was disposable with a 4-minute meeting and a word like redundant. If someone has ever let you go right when you needed stability the most, I want to hear what happened next. Tell me in the comments. I read every single one.